Righty, kia ora everybody. Can I begin by thanking Mayor Paula Southgate for hosting us today. We've just had a good conversation about the various community safety initiatives that we have been working on with the Hamilton City Council over the last year or so as a result of the partnership approach that we've taken to tackling crime in this area. So things like extra CCTV cameras, extra community safety initiatives that includes better urban design and so on. We have co-funded a range of initiatives with the council which are now starting to deliver real benefits in terms of community safety, and that's an approach that we're committed to continuing with. We know that one of the things that we can do that really helps to tackle crime in our community is make sure we've got more cops on the beat and that those police have the tools that they need in order to be able to tackle crime. Today I'm announcing that Labor will put an additional 300 extra police on the beat in the next term. That builds on the work that we have done over the last 6 years to put 1,800 extra police on the beat. We know that having more police on the beat means our communities will be safer. It means that people will see police on the beat more, and it means that the police will have more resources and more people to deal with crime as it arises. The police have been doing a great job of following up on youth offending. They've also been doing a great job of making sure that they are cracking down on gang activity. So there have been a lot of prosecutions, a lot of charges against gangs because of the work that, because of the influence that they are having on the level of crime in our communities, and we're backing the police to continue with that job. Extra police on the beat will be good for New Zealand. Our track record here is a very strong one. 1,800 extra police on the beat. When we came into government, there was about one police officer for around about every 540 New Zealanders. We've got that down to about one police officer for every 480 New Zealanders. This announcement, the extra 300 that we're committing to today, will get that down to one to about 470 New Zealanders. We think that that's really good progress, and we're also committed to changing the law where we need to make sure the police have got the tools that they need to crack down on crime.
You delivered 1,800 new police officers, but we've seen dairy owners, liquor store owners just getting hammered by those ram raids. Backed off a bit lately. But would an extra 300 police officers really make a difference there, do you think?
It will make a difference because it will mean that the police have more people out on the beat who can follow up on those crimes. But that's not the only thing that we're doing. We also want to get those young people out of the cycle of crime. I don't want those young people doing that offending in the first place. Extra community safety initiatives, like the ones that we have been looking at today, have a mix of making it harder for people to commit crime, but they've also got quite an emphasis on preventing that criminal offending in the first place.
How many of the 300 are actual frontline police?
They will all be sworn police officers.
All sworn?
Yep.
And is the 300 taking into account attrition? So it's 300 extra.
That's
costs,
correct.
not just 300.
So current funding allows for attrition, and it also allows for extra growth to accommodate for population growth, so that we keep that 1 to 480 ratio. This will allow us, the extra 300 will go further than both of those things.
300 is not very aspirational, is it, when you compare it to 1,800?
If you also consider the fact that we're going to be recruiting extra to keep up with population growth, and we're going to be recruiting extra to deal with attrition, it means that the police college is still going to be very busy.
Will you commit to 24/7 security staff at every ED in the country?
I think we need to continue to work through Te Whatu Ora to make sure that our emergency departments are safe. As I said the other day, I acknowledge that our emergency departments in hospitals often see people when they are at their worst, and I do think that staff safety is something that the people who are managing the hospitals need to take very seriously, and we will work with them to make sure that those concerns around staff safety are properly addressed.
Can I just get you to answer the question, will you commit to 24/7 security staff at every ED in the country?
I'm not sure that that's going to be required in every instance, but what we will do is work with the staff who are expressing legitimate concerns about their safety as to how we can best address that. And if extra security is required, of course we will work with the people who are running Te Whatu Ora, who are running the hospital, to make sure extra security is put in place where it's needed.
And will you commit to appropriate staffing of all mental health facilities as pledged in the 2019 mental health budget package?
We're continuing to to train more people in the mental health workforce. We've made good progress. That doesn't mean our job is done. So I'm absolutely committed to the commitments that we have previously made. Sort of going around, and I'm still committed to that, but we've still got more work to do to train the workforce that we need to be able to achieve all of those things.
Budget cycles are 4 years. You pledged that money back in 2019. It's more than 4 years since 2019. what's happened?
And we've scaled up the workforce, we've scaled up the training, and many of those jobs actually require at least 4 years worth of training before you do them. So we have increased the number of people we're training in the mental health workforce. We've been building a new approach to mental health from the ground up. So, for example, the Access and Choice initiative, which was also funded through that budget and package, has now delivered over 1 million counselling sessions across the country. That took a while to scale up because, of course, we had to recruit the people to do that work. It is now delivering at a much greater rate than the country ever has before.
You've said you'd considered new laws around gang convoys. What are you thinking?
I might ask the Minister of Police and Justice to provide some more details on that one.
So we've already made some good progress in terms of legislation targeting fleeing drivers and also the CAIL, or the Criminal Activity Intervention Legislation Bill. Both those have had some really good progress in adding extra tools for police. What we're announcing today is specifically targeting convoys. So if there would be an intent to intimidate the public and 2 or more driving along committing some infringements, that would give police the opportunity then to be able to take those vehicles.
But these gang members often go into like a funeral, right?
In situations where we have large-scale convoys that are disrupting people going about their daily lives, this is an opportunity for police to use this as a way of taking those vehicles and restoring law and order.
To be clear, would they be able to stop convoys on their way to a tangi?
What they are able to do and what they do now is they take note of all the vehicles and they're able to go and seize those vehicles after the time if it's not physically possible to do it at the time.
Trapping people on the way to a funeral?
No, what happens right now, and it's happened in Tauranga recently, is police use their CCTV footage to identify those vehicles when they've made traffic infringements or committed other offences, and then steps are taken to then impound those vehicles.
Brian Tamaki, when his protests come to Parliament, they're often on noisy bikes. Would this apply to Freedom's New Zealand supporters?
It is designed for when there are large-scale convoys going through public roads and they are disrupting people's daily lives and people going about their daily business.
So it would apply to farmers too when they do protests?
On large-scale convoys, if they're stopping people going about their daily lives, if police want to use that legislation, that's for police to be able to take a prosecution.
The groundswell tractors would get captured under your gang convoy legislation?
Police will, of course, always have discretion about when they take prosecutions and when they don't, and police will consider things like protest, for example, where people are breaking the rules. Police will, and do now, consider where people breaking the rules, if they're doing that in a form of protest, they always have discretion not to prosecute.
They always had discretion to do this in the first place, then why are you introducing the law?
So this is a new law. So currently there for fleeing drivers, there's laws for seizing vehicles, and also under the CAIL legislation there's some opportunity there, but it has been in some instances difficult for police to bring a prosecution and seize vehicles on those large-scale organised crime convoys.
Would this have stopped the convoy that parked outside Parliament for a month?
The difficulty always in those sorts of situations is for frontline safety and making sure police officers can do that work while maintaining law and order and keeping their own safety paramount. What happens in most situations is those seizures or that work takes place after the event is finished.
Can I just get you to answer the question, would it have stopped the convoy parked up at Parliament for a month?
It's really difficult to say how that would have worked because they're parked. This is for in situations where you're seeing...
Well, they convoyed there first, right?
It would be difficult to apply that in that situation, and I'm not prepared to understand how that might have applied in those circumstances.
300 officers, will they be deployed across the country or in particular regions?
That's deployed right across the country. What we saw when the 1,800 additional police officers came on board, that every single police district in New Zealand saw an increase, and I would think the same would happen with this instance.
Prime Minister,
Yes.
RNZ has been reporting this morning that Botany Downs secondary school roof has still not been fixed, despite an announcement of $20 million repairs in 2019 when you were the Education Minister. What has failed with that program?
I don't have an update on every individual school upgrade program that's been committed to over the last 5 or 6 years. There have been delays in some of those projects. In some cases it's because it's been a question of finding contractors to do the work. In other cases there has been a constant need to be looking at where the most pressing needs are first. I'm happy to follow up that individual project
That
though.
would be great.
Yeah.
I mean, roof tiles are falling into classrooms for some people's entire secondary education. They might have been having a leaky roof at their school. Would you be happy if that was your children's school?
Absolutely not, and I'm not satisfied with the state of school property across the country. We're spending a lot of money on school property at the moment, upgrading it, but we're also doing that in an environment where the cost of doing all of those projects is continuing to escalate as well. So the Ministry of Education are doing their best with the funding that they've got available to really catch up and to deal with those most urgent needs. If that one has been, delayed I don't have the reason for any delay in that project, but I know as Minister of Education I was constantly looking at those projects to make sure that we kept them all moving. Happy to follow up on whether that one has particularly stalled.
What will National's immigration and foreign buyers policies do to the housing market?
We believe that the Nationals allowing National's decision to allow foreign buyers back into the New Zealand housing market will ultimately increase New Zealand house prices and therefore make it more difficult for New Zealanders to buy those homes.
Well, will Labor have a campaign buzz?
Haven't decided on the last few weeks of the campaign yet and what the exact sort of shape of that will look like. We're not going to have one in the next few weeks.
National wants to scrap the median wage requirement for tourism and hospitality work visas. Will this lead to more exploitation?
Sorry, what was that?
National wants to scrap the median wage requirement for tourism and hospitality work visas. Will this lead to more exploitation?
I think it could well lead to more exploitation. It could also lead to New Zealanders who are willing to do the work for a decent amount of pay being shut out of that work.
Did disabled Kiwis get free public transport under your government?
If they have a community services card, yes they do.
You sure?
If community services card holders are eligible for free public transport.
No,
Why
they're not.
didn't it extend to total mobility, which is what Michael Wood had promised?
I understand there's been some issues around the way this was communicated. We've increased the funding for total mobility holders because total mobility is actually designed to be a scheme for those with disabilities who can't use public transport. So it's effectively a taxi service for those with disabilities who can't use it, and we've increased the funding to make that more widely available. I do understand that in the communication of that, some of that communication has been mixed up, and so I've made sure that the team are going back to correct that. I don't want any information out there that isn't a completely accurate portrayal of where the extra funding has been going.
You put out an attack ad against National saying National's tax plan cuts free public transport for disabled Kiwis. Is that true?
As I have said, I have asked the team to go back and make sure that everything that they have done in that space is accurate. I haven't had the opportunity to look at that one in particular, but I have made it very clear that anything that's not completely accurate needs to be removed.
You guys are just spreading this information in this campaign, aren't you?
As I've set a pretty clear standard. I want everything. Now, there's plenty in the National Party's policies to attack that is actually what they are proposing. So I've made it very clear that I want to make sure that that is what we are focused on.
Is it a sign of your desperation that you're not telling the truth?
No.
26% in the Waikato Times poll this morning. How did that make you feel?
Oh, well, that poll was taken a few weeks ago before the campaign had even launched. Campaign's just getting underway. A poll is a poll, and nobody's voted yet. So we've still got plenty to do over the next 5.5 weeks.
Yeah, the
26 is
two
utterly
candidates behind
disastrous,
you on
isn't
that
it?
poll, they're not likely to make it back into Parliament.
Sorry, what was that?
The two candidates behind you for the Hamilton seats and the MP who's retiring, they're not likely to make it back into Parliament. Do you need to put in a bit more effort here in the Waikato?
Well, the MP who's retiring won't be making it back into Parliament because he's decided he doesn't want to be. But it's still early days in this campaign. There's still 5.5 weeks to go, and we're out there campaigning vigorously. I think when New Zealanders hear about the policies that we have just announced, including free dental care for the under 30s, including removing GST off fruit and vegetables, and the other targeted cost of living measures that we're putting in place, I think that that's a compelling reason to vote for Labor, and so we'll be out there campaigning hard.
National has also proposed today that it would lift the working holiday visa age from 30 to 35 for all eligible countries, not just the UK. Is that a good idea? It's
a step away from the reciprocity that we have in our working holiday visa schemes at the moment. We've certainly been open as a government to lifting the age of eligibility for working holiday visas. I think the UK was the most recent one where we extended that to 35. But we normally try and use that as a bargaining tool so that we can do that on a reciprocal basis with those countries to give Kiwis who want to do working holidays in those countries better access. By doing it unilaterally, we potentially rob Kiwis who want to go abroad and have a working holiday abroad with that same opportunity.
There's been a couple of public polls now that have had you below 30. If you don't get above 30 in the election result, will you stand down?
As I've said, don't have a plan B.
I'm not asking
100%
you,
focused.
I'm not asking you if you
I'm
plan
not.
B if you lose. If you get under 30, will you stand down?
If that happens, you can ask me the day after the election. Right.
Why don't you just make a commitment now? Like the Labor Party shouldn't be getting under 30, right?
I'm not focused on losing. I'm focused on winning. Right.
Can you?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Campaign is just getting started. Right. Other questions? Okay. Thanks all.
Cool. Thank you.
Nice work.